Yeah, this is the C-Town Rivals podcast where each and every week during football season, we come at you. We come at you pretty good, and we've been hitting you hard for the last 12 years, 12 solid years, and we've seen a lot of sights, sounds, blood, sweat, and tears, all of that good stuff in and around the Chandler area. This past week, can't say it was a terrible week. One team has played its last game, but overall 5 wins and 3 losses. The CUSD was 4-2. Our 2 schools of faith, 1 up and 1 down. And who better to talk about it with me than my 2 guys? We will bring out Chili and Ralph. Each one has carved a really good name for themselves in not only the high school world, but the college world as well. My first thing is we're going to talk some college football because that's one of my loves. That is definitely one of my loves. But first, how are you guys? Ralph, how are you, my man?
Doing all right. Excited for the end of the season and for playoffs to start. I think it's going to be one of the more competitive playoff tournaments of our time doing this.
It definitely is. I certainly agree with that. Chili, what's good with you? And then lead us into any thoughts of college football that you might.
Yeah, no, I was in Texas this past weekend eating some good barbecue. I went to this place, Quintyne, and the sandwich was absolutely insane. It was like brisket and jalapeno sausage. I had some peach cobbler, which was a little doughy, but it was all good. Some mac and cheese and stuff like that. But
I'm curious, where in Texas?
In Dallas. I was out at SMU for the SMU Pitt game, and I watched SMU absolutely roll Pitt. But shout out to my guy Eli Holstein. I got to catch up with him for a minute, and he's telling me how excited he is just being at Pitt and the opportunities and things like that. And they're looking forward to the rest of the season. It didn't work out the way they wanted to on Saturday, but look, I just hope that he's doing well for your fantasy team.
I was going to say, needless to say, he has not been a fantasy starter of mine for a few weeks. He's he's struggled. He definitely has had his struggles. But go ahead, Shedeur Sanders. That's my guy for this week.
Oh, okay. I'm not mad at that.
Week and for the foreseeable future. Ralph, 12 teams, college football. First rankings were released. And folks, just so you know, we're going to talk a lot about rankings later on in this show. I've got a lot of opinions, Ralph. I'm going to kind of have a little mini segment of you, bracketology with Ralph. That might be towards the end, but Ralph,
you want to do that?
Yes. I respect your bracket knowledge and your algorithm formula in your head. So now we'll. But before we get to high school, college, your initial thoughts on that first ranking?
I think your boys are overranked at this point in time. I think that's the most egregious issue thus far. They gave up 191 yards on 5 explosive plays against USC. They did not score an offensive touchdown against Ohio State, and I think both of those things go pretty far in informing why I don't think they should be number 6. I mean, there's still time. They've still got kind of a tough schedule left to justify being 6th. But right now, I think that Penn State's probably being given a little bit too much respect. And then I'm very, very fascinated by the fact that the BYU's got that win over SMU. SMU's got a win over Louisville. But they're not really giving SMU that credit for the Louisville win, nor are they giving BYU credit for the SMU win. So I think the overall view of the conferences, as it's, SEC and Big Ten up here and everybody else down here, I think it's really coming through in those initial rankings. But on resume alone, I might bump SMU up a little bit higher than they are, and I'd probably put Penn State down a little bit further than they're currently sitting at.
Fair enough. No, that's that is why we express this with opinions and things of that nature. I'll say for my guys, I mean, I think they've got winnable games on their schedule. If they don't finish 11-1, something is wrong. Of course, they've got the whiteout this week, and we'll see. We'll see what goes on with Purdue and Maryland, and so we shall see. But yes, the rankings are out, and it's the 12-team tournament is. I think it's going to be really cool, and I think this high school tournament is going to be cool, and we'll definitely dive into that. And we're going to start with a team that has unfortunately played their last game of the season, the Valley Christian Trojans. Their season comes to an end, 49-28 to the hands of the top-ranked Ben Franklin Chargers. First full season that Valley Christian has not made the playoffs since 2017. That was actually Jeff Rutledge last season as head coach. Ralph, prior to this year, they had won 31 games over their last 3 seasons. This year, they finished 4-6. It seems like they just never found themselves.
I agree, and I think if you can boil down, this team to one thing, yes, there is some youth, but the one thing that they've had the last few years that they don't have this year is the ability to have those big plays. In fact, I don't think all the stats are input for the season, but certainly well over half the season, and they don't have a single play this year longer than 38 yards, not one. Wow. And I think the games that weren't put in were probably the ones they lost, and it would be reasonable to assume they didn't do better in those games. And so the inability to make up a lot of ground in a short amount of time makes it really, really tough on a 3A team as the rest of 3A sort of discovers the forward pass and big plays and things like that. If you're not a team that can get a big chunk of yards all at once, then falling down in a 14-point hole can be devastating. And that happened to them a couple of times this year.
Chile, indeed. They I hate saying they've got next year to look forward to because everybody will be a year older, but this was a rough one. Yeah,
it was tough. But, I think Peterson will figure it out, man. Hansel comes back. That's important. Shooter comes back. They got some guys coming back that I think will be able to help lead, and
absolutely,
they got some pieces in place. I think unfortunately, I think they lose some guys in the trenches, but for the most part, I think Peterson will be able to get this thing figured out. And after having so much success for so long, sometimes I hate to say this, but you need to struggle. You need to see how the other half lives, and so that where you don't want to go back to. And I think these guys will come back, recharged and ready to go for next season. And also, they had some injury issues that they had to deal with, quarterback complications, some things that I think that Peterson wasn't exactly used to at Valley Christian while he's been there. So, I'm excited for them for next year. I think next year there'll definitely be a better showing, and we'll see how it all works out.
Jake Peterson, as always, thank you for letting us into your program. The Seton Catholic Sentinels, they take care of business on the road. They defeat the Sierra Linda Bulldogs by a score of 27-14. Chase Dixon with a couple of touchdown passes, one each to Nico Pastore and Tassi Allo. 121 yards on the ground for Luke Aguiar. Chile, no surprise that Pete Walheim's team is now 7-2 on the season. Another solid victory.
Hey, they're rolling. They've been rolling. Coach Walheim definitely got this thing turned around in the best way. We're talking about this for weeks on weeks. And can Seton keep winning? Can they sustain the success? Can they keep moving forward? Are they going to fall flat at any point? And Walheim's done a great job of answering all those questions, continuing to feed the beast, literally, by the numbers that Ralph gave us last week. Luke's been fantastic. He's been absolutely fantastic. And I love what Walheim's doing, giving guys opportunities to play a little bit deeper into games than what we've seen in the past when Seton's been successful. So I think these guys will be playoff ready. And this isn't, I've said this about Desert Edge. Desert Edge isn't a team that you want to see in the first round of playoffs. I don't think Seton's a team that you want to see coming to your stadium in the first round of the playoffs. I think that people I think people are a little bit nervous. It's probably going to be a 7 or 8 seed that hosts Seton, because I don't think that Seton will get enough out of this week to jump up too much. And I think right now they're about 9, right? So
they are 9 as we speak. Yep.
So I think that they're going to be going to visit somebody. They're going to be on the road, and I think that it's going to be I think it's going to make somebody nervous when they show up.
Ralph, offensively, we know exactly who that beast is, but defensively, we've seen Sloan Sweet continue to roam all around that field. We've seen Michael Prost this past week. He had a couple of sacks. Kind of an underrated unit because so much has been focused offensively that the defense has been more than holding its own.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a great way to describe it. More than holding its own. They are plus 19 in turnovers this year. This last week with their 2 interceptions, they hit 30 total turnovers generated. 30 in 9 games.
In 9 games. Wow. Yeah.
Unheard of. You brought up Probst with 3 sacks. I think they had 4 on the game. That's probably the one thing that this defense didn't do well. They don't play a lot of passing offenses. 25% of their sacks on the season actually came in this game against Sierra Linda. So I mean, couldn't be prouder of the job that Walheim has done. This defense, 30 turnover like that. That's I wouldn't even know how to look for what the team record is for regular season, but you would have to think at 4A that they have to be up there, and they kept it going with 2 more interceptions this last week.
They've got La Jolla this week. La Jolla stuck it to Seton last year, 28-9. I got to think things will be a little bit different this time around. The Arizona College Prep Knights. It seems like I always just keep saying they continue to dominate, and that's what they do week in and week out. This year, 64-22 over the Mesquite Wildcats. Coach Steve Ott's team, 8 wins and 1 loss. We know that loss was out of state. Ralph, if there was ever a team that was balanced is all hell on a stat sheet, it's the Knights. 8 different ball carriers, 11 receivers, 2 quarterbacks having really good games. This team is just really dangerous, man.
So if you're a parent in an open enrollment state like Arizona and you're looking for a place for your kid to go play, you're going to look at a team like Arizona College Prep, who has rotated several people into several positions, and it all worked. And you're going to say to yourself, this is a place where the system is going to allow for my child to show what they can do. And that's the best part about going out there and being balanced. This is not a comparison. These 2 schools are not equivalent, but this is what Centennial did through the 2010s. They'd have 3 different running backs out there that could all produce. They'd have 3 different defensive linemen, 3 different defensive backs that every single year. I mean, you'd go year over year, and the 6A defensive back of the year, the 5A defensive back of the year finalist, you always have one from Centennial on the D-line, linebacker, and in the defensive backfield every single year. Every single year, we'd be talking about, how do we give a Centennial running back awards when they're the ones winning all these games, but they split the carries 3 ways. That's the type of reputation that you want. You want a system that works and that showcases what kids' abilities are. And, you look at them over the season right now, they don't have a single player, I believe, that has more than 60 carries. But they have 5 different players averaging at least 4.8 yards per game.
That's
all
nice.
have more than 100 yards rushing.
That's tough, Chili. We know that Coach Vaught has done a great job delegating to his assistants.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're more well versed in that assistant scenario. Obviously, Robert Ortiz has done a great job, but that's really where it's happening. I mean, the assistants have been carrying the load, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think that Vaught's done a great job of, kind of stepping back, mentoring some of these guys and letting them go do their thing and do what they do best. And I think that comes from him having an opportunity to do that himself when he was a coordinator. So Coach Ortiz on that offense, he's had that thing dialed up, and he seems to be hot with the play calling right now. Coach Bart's also equally hot, making sure that, Ortiz's offense gets that ball back, timely. And then Wendell Schaefer, the guy that I feel like I don't show enough love to, the special teams, the 3 facets of the game, and special teams is definitely a part of it. I talked to my guy, one of my mentors, Coach Regal, who is special teams coach, assistant head coach of sorts, right? And he always told me, and I don't know if it's because he was a special teams coach, he said special teams coaches will make the best head coaches. So, Wendell Schaefer is doing a phenomenal job on special teams and making sure that his guys are dialed in. And I know that that's kind of like one of the watching like freshman games and the progression and things like that. Sometimes special teams coaches have the most difficult task of keeping their guys organized and motivated because they're all spread around. Some of them playing defense, some of them are playing offense, some of them are watching in-game film and things like that. So to have his team so tuned in, his special teams guys ready to go, I'm super impressed. Some guys, though, on the team that I do want to show some love to because I feel like I don't give enough credit to some of these guys is guys like Spenlove, Cole Piram, Ronan Solomon.
Austin Spenlove, I like him.
Yeah, Keegan Prescott, Daniel Velasquez, Bryce Vaught on defense. You always hear me talking about the Sanchez's and the Pools and the Heinrichs and stuff like that. But those are the guys, the lunch pail guys that I think come to work every day to make sure that those guys can roll the way that they do. So I wanted to make sure that I showed some of those guys some love. And ACP, and I've said this to a couple of people, they might be playing the best football in Arizona right now. They really might. This is a team that, like, I think that we can almost just, for now, pencil in to that championship game. This team is ridiculously hot, and I'm super excited. Hopefully, we can get them a seat in the championship.
That'd be lovely. Big one on the road for ACP this Friday against Arcadia. We'll talk about what that means as far as rankings and what can be broken down and all that fun stuff towards the end of the show. The Perry Pumas, they defeat the Chandler Wolves for the first time ever. 24-17 is the final. The action was clearly in the second half. Perry was ahead 10-7. Big goal line stand. Perry had a couple of goal line stands in this game. Next thing you know, they get tackled in the end zone for a safety. 10-9. Chandler returns the ensuing kickoff for a touchdown. They convert the 2-point conversion. That's 10 points in less than 5 real minutes. And that's where you're like, all right, hey, Chandler's going to take control of this game. That's where the Wolves miss Tristan Halsana. Perry comes back, touchdown, they tied. Ultimately, Chandler's driving again, but in the end, it was a 100-yard pick six by Nate Wheeler, who I was just very impressed with. He scored the 2 rushing touchdowns for the Pumas. And in the end, yeah, the Pumas, they won the game. The Wolves, they certainly missed a couple of guys. But I'll say, Ralph, I'll ask you, what does this Perry victory, first time ever, mean for them, the school, the season, all of that recipe that we've been talking about for years?
It's a benchmark and a building block. I think that if you look at the rise of Basha, if you look at the rise of Chandler, if you look at the reemergence of Hamilton, there are games and dates you can point to on their schedule and say, this is where we saw a change. This is where they overcame a certain hurdle. Losing 14 straight to Chandler is a really big deal when at this point you've got, a quarterback in the NFL, multiple guys off starting at the, collegiate level that have played at, at Cal and other places. Knowing that you can do it means it can be done again. And that's why it was so important in 2013 for Chandler to get their first win over Hamilton. That's why it was so important for DeMond and company to shut Chandler out with the, at the time, #1 player in the country on the other side at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a benchmark place for Perry to be, because in the emergence of Perry, yes, their rivalry is with Basha, and yeah, they did beat Hamilton a few times when Hamilton was trending down coming off the hazing scandal. But to them, the king of the mountain has always been Chandler, whether they came into this game 5-3 or not. They beat them in back-to-back 6A title games. They crushed them in regular season games that were, that were so one-sided it caused coaches to get in each other's faces away from the field later on.
Sure.
They've had players go from Chandler to Perry, players go from Perry to Chandler, that caused a lot of consternation between the two of them. Their boundary is, I know Chandler's only 3 miles away from Hamilton, but that boundary with Perry encroached up to less than a mile from Chandler at certain points. And so this is a really, really big deal. They should be very proud of themselves. I think the reason they should be proudest is because it looked like it looked like, not that they were punting on the season. That's not the right thing, but it looked like the offense was broken, right?
Yep.
They had back-to-back games with less than 10 first downs. They couldn't hold the ball to maintain possession. And now they're in a situation where they're going into Basha week saying, why not us?
Agreed. No, it's and that's one thing I'll also say, just kind of sliding away from your point. Perry is doing something, and this will lead me into you, Chili. They're running the ball a little bit more, at least trying to do. We saw, because one of my biggest gripes was your quarterback should never be your leading rusher, or rarely. You need to have a little bit more of that depth. And over the course of the weeks, we've seen that they're starting to have a runner kind of step out. In this case, it was Nate Wheeler. Chili, the one thing that I got to say, that I have to see this out of Perry at some point, in particular, Cale Snyder, I got to see more completions and incompletions in a game. I know he's young and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm going to go back to the old adage of when we watch college basketball in late February, early March. He's not a freshman anymore. He's had games.
Yeah. That's
Snyder
fair.
is talented. There's no doubt about that. I just got to see completions. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I get it. Look, kid holds a G5 offer now to Boise State. Everybody wants to see him turn it up a little bit. I think the Pumas as a whole, I think Perry as a whole is still trying to find their way and figure things out. And I think we learned that through the struggle at Casteel, the struggle with Williams Field and things like that. Not being, I know there were injuries and things like that, but not being able to close out those close games that we felt like they should have won. I think I think that ultimately is what turned into the Chandler victory. Without suffering those close losses, I don't know. Maybe they still beat Chandler, but maybe they don't. I think they needed. I think they needed some of that experience. Look, Cale's going to be just fine and is going to come around, and he'll definitely be on the upside of the completion stuff. He's going to throw a bunch of touchdowns, like you alluded to on Twitter in your famous quote from I think like week 1 or 2 or whatever. But look, the Pumas definitely got this thing going in the right direction now. They righted the ship. It's a huge victory, as Ralph said, and I think that Coach Ortiz is starting to figure this thing out. Bash a different task, and I think that these guys are just ready to compete. Look, this 27 class over at Perry, I know they take this seriously, and I know people are going to be like, oh my God, it's just one game on freshman, one game on varsity, but they're undefeated versus Chandler, and to them that is a very, very big thing. So they should be proud of that.
Speaking of the Chandler Wolves, where do they stand? I don't mean record-wise, just what's happening with the Wolves. Halsana did not play. Menzel was hurt. Whether we want to talk about next week or, well, not next week just yet, but moving forward the rest of this season into next year, where do the Wolves stand?
Look, lower levels are coming back around for Chandler. Coach Frazier, who was a wolf himself, they talk about raised by wolves all the time. Now you got wolves raising wolves, and I absolutely love that, because sometimes you need to bring a person back that knows what those glory years are like, and what everything means, the Johanna and all that stuff, after dealing with like the transfer era, if you will, even at Chandler, which did so well homegrown with their class of 22 and 21 and so on and so forth. But they got some dudes on that lower level, Marshawn Payne, Makai Nelson, some of these wide receivers over there, Chase Ochoa, who might be Carter's little brother, I'm not sure. But
my guess is yes. I don't know for a fact. But yeah,
I don't know for sure, but I think it is. They got some DBs over there, Jalen Taylor, Tavon Harris. They got some dudes that can go. As long as they can keep everybody together, they're going to be fine. And they got somebody that we're going to be familiar with the last name, defensive lineman, might be an outside backer at the end of this, but I'm not sure, Cam Hanger. And my guy can absolutely go and will get that defense charged up. They got another defensive end, outside linebacker type over there, Cruz
Are we
Cooper.
saying it's Dominic's brother?
It is Dominic's brother, and the future. Look, I think the future is a little bit brighter. I think it's a little bit brighter because listen, the past few years I've told people that some of these classes at Chandler weren't going to be able to provide and sustain everything that Chandler was used to and accustomed to, and that's why I said last week. I think Garrison's done an amazing job with all the kids that have moved on and transferred out and left the program, and the way that he's been able to keep it afloat. 500 for Chandler right now, I think it's a testament to his coaching ability for everything that they've lost. You don't lose a player of the year, a kid to IMG, kids getting injured like Browder and Hosanna, and survive. A lot of programs don't survive that. Mental, you're starting QB. So yeah, I think that they're okay. The future's bright.
Ralph, that's kind of what I was even going to say. 5-5 is not bad for what they've gone through, and yeah, I do think that the future is bright for the Wolves.
5-5 is bad because it includes a loss to Hamilton, which they will never accept. So, I would say this: sometimes
that's true.
Sometimes a game comes down to one play, and you have a 99-yard interception return that is the difference between 24 and to 17 the other way. So, your quarterback's out, your running back's out, and you get a 99-yard pick six for the loss. There's hitting the reset button and saying the sky's falling because we've never lost to Perry before. And there's picking yourself back up and handling business in the 6A playoffs, which is what Hamilton did the first time Chandler beat them. Dusted themselves off, got a little help from a rain delay, and went out there and grinded out a win. And I think Chandler is more than capable of doing that.
That works. That definitely works. Let's move south on Arizona Avenue. The Hamilton Huskies. Big win for the boys, 30-28 over the Red Mountain Lions. They upped their mark to 8-1. Ralph, this is nice. First, I'm going to say the guy that we deemed your guy, Ralph, Roy Oliver, freshman wide receiver, 4 catches, 130 yards and a score. The guy that Chile claims, Reese Rinaldi, touchdown catch. Senior QB, Rich Lucero, 244 passing yards. And, oh, yeah, what can Brown do for you? Chile, this team is dangerous.
Man, I love Jacob Brown. I've been saying since the beginning that they just got to find a way to get the ball in his hands, run this offense through him, and let him go. The kid is absolutely special. I think he's one of the top 26 running backs in the state, and maybe the top 26 running back in the state the way he's playing right now. And I just think that as long as they ride. As long as they ride him into the playoffs, I think that they're going to continue to see success. I know Chandler's not going to give the game away or whatever. Don't want to go too much in preview, but I do like what Hamilton's doing right now, and I think a lot of what's going on good for them is through Brown. I think Lucero's fantastic, and he's distributing the ball the way it needs to be done. And this is a team, man. Shoot. 9-1 and going into the 6A conference playoffs is absolutely insane. I do think that they belong in the open. I'm not sure, but 9-1 in the premier region, and you go to the 6A conference playoffs. Hey, you better come home with that trophy.
Ralph, your take on the Huskies? I like this team. I feel this is one of the. It's hard to say this is one of the better Husky teams because they've been consistent, but. This team is poised wherever they end up to go a long way.
You're right. And you brought up Jacob Brown, and in his first 6 games, he had 36 total carries. 36. And we talked a lot about wanting to see him get more touches. Against Valley Vista, he only had 5 touches, but he scored on 3 of them, right? 4 of them, because he got one in the passing game. But in these last 3 weeks, as we've gotten into the meat of Hamilton's schedule, against Perry, against Casteel, against Red Mountain, just in those 3 games alone, I believe he's gotten the ball about 60 times, over 60 times. And he had 131 yards or 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, 114 yards. He had 107 against a very, very stingy Red Mountain defense. And they're using him in the passing game. He has 8 catches over the last 3 games as well. So, one of the best things is seeing a player grow, seeing a player get used more as the season goes on. And you and Chile really hammered this home all year. All I said is I want to see him run the ball more. And both of you kept telling me it's Jacob Brown, it's Jacob Brown. Now we're seeing that take place. And if they want to who knows what their playoff situation will be. But if they want to advance, if they want to continue this on, having a feature back at this time of year as you get into November is one of the most important things you can have.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. Let's move on to the Casteel Colts. They fall to the Basha Bears 38-7. Casteel now 4-5 on the year. Elijah Beeman, Chili, he's a guy that you've been following for a while.
Idaho State commit.
He's doing a lot for this team. He will be a Bengal, I guess. Is that Idaho State? Yes. I'll say, Chili, I'll ask you about Elijah Beeman, what he brings to the table, just his role on this Casteel team.
Absolutely explosive offensive player. I think that he's so dynamic. Anytime that he's out there on the field, he's a threat to make a big play. Every time that I've watched him play personally, it's like he peels off for some 70-yard touchdown, just burning by defensive backs. So he's a threat anytime he's on the field. Mason Lewis is an absolute dude out there. Paul Palmer's had a great senior year. Super happy for him. And all that he's been able to contribute to the team. So they got guys, Kabaki. This offense, like it really could go crazy. Sorensen, Linier, all those guys. I think that they got some special pieces there. They just gotta all come together at the right time. It seems like they're coming together in pieces.
And that's the one thing I'll ask kind of both of you. I've only been to one Casteel game this year. At least looking at the box scores and the stat sheets, it seems like a lot of these pieces, and I agree, they do have some dudes, never seem to be on the field at the same time. Somebody's always hurt or not playing for whatever reason. Somebody has a great game, but the other one didn't sit. It's like it'd be nice to see these names lined up together, rushing and passing, because that'll result in wins. And Ralph, it's got to start with Corona.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Chili always kind of gets into debates is when you have an issue at quarterback, what do you do, right? And we've seen this over the years. Perry did this once when Austin Nightingale went down with a broken femur. They put their best athlete, really the only person who could get them any yards from at wide receiver, and they moved him to quarterback. And then all of a sudden they didn't have the ability to move the ball. You have Elijah Beeman miss all of September, finally get back in, and you're looking forward to seeing that connection between him and Paul Palmer, and he has to play quarterback against both Hamilton and Basha, effectively removing one of the best weapons from this offense. And that's got to be tough for Casteel to watch, because it's been multiple times in the last few seasons where they've had to shift an athlete into that quarterback position.
Like Newcomb last year.
Yes, like Newcomb last year.
And the year before.
Right. And so, for every time that you have to do that, you limit yourself in what you're practicing and what you're doing. One of the most shocking losses of our entire time covering high school football was Chandler losing to Desert Ridge in the 2015 playoffs. And how did that happen? They had one of the most talented group of receivers we've ever seen. You had one of them rendered ineligible and the other one break his leg early in the game.
Yep.
So then all of a sudden they have to move Chase Lucas, who had missed, just like Elijah Beeman, a month out of the season with a meniscus, over into the slot receiver role. He doesn't necessarily know what he's doing. Mason Moran has all new weapons and a different person to have to hand the ball off to. Nobody has any chemistry. And then all of a sudden you have 1 year in a 7-year period where Chandler's not in the championship, all because you had to shift a couple of players around late in the season to do things that they haven't been practicing. And I worry that keeps happening to Casteel. And I don't know if you know, Chili, what's going on with Paul Palmer, or if we're going to see Elijah Beeman continue in this quarterback role. But I know that the longer that he's in that position, the less weapons Casteel has.
I don't know, but like I said, Paul Palmer has been I felt like great this year. I know that he's every time that he has played, he's been fun to watch. He's done a great job putting the ball where it needs to go. I'm hoping that he'll be back, but I do know that in the past there have been situations where even like Landon Jury, somebody that we loved at quarterback. And look, I'll speak for myself. I am not a coach. Maybe Coach Newcomb sees something out there different than what I see opinion wise. But as a talking head, like I would just at the time love to see Landon Jury line up at quarterback to get the ball to a playmaker if it's going to be Newcomb on the field, put him at receiver or something like that so that he can make the big play. If it's going to be in this situation with Paul Palmer, if Paul Palmer's injured, that's one thing. But if he's suited up out there and warming up and stuff, then that's something completely different. And I don't know how to figure out that puzzle. Maybe the OC and Newcomb have discussed that it's better to have a more well-rounded athlete at quarterback. I don't know if that works. I don't know if that works that way, especially when you have somebody like Paul that's capable of distributing the ball. So
that's fair. That's fair. We will move on to the Basha Bears. And in my opinion, the Basha Bears are the best team in the state. I'm going to start with team unity. So Sunday, there was a huge celebration of life for Michael Georgievich. He is the dad of Cooper Georgievich, tight end on the Basha Bears. And it was overflow. I mean, anytime you have former NFL players, you have Frank Narducci, who's a big-time guy in the CUSD, you had a lot of people. It was it was a terrific send-off. You never want to go to one of these things, but it was family. The guys were in uniform. It's special with Basha. I mean, they're feeling it. They know that there is a task ahead of them, and first week is to defeat Perry, going 1-0 against Perry this week, and then we'll see how the games in November and ultimately into December line up. But this Basha Bears team, Chile, it's good. It's real good. I don't know what more to say. We know they've got the weapons from receiver to running back to, of course, QB. Overall, they have weapons and they have another reason to play for.
Yeah, look, this Perry game it's important to them. This is the one game that they want to win. It's a rivalry game, the Battle of Val Vista. They got their cool little plaque trophy thing that they hang up. And just like every school takes their rivalry game very, very seriously, Bash is no different. And this game means a lot. Whether Perry's 1-9, 5-5, or 9-1, or whatever, or they just want to beat Perry. So these guys are going to be ready to go. They're going to be locked in. I'm expecting a big game out of like Brody Veers and Noah Roberts. Shout out to Noah, just picked up that Alabama offer. I remember being out at Mission Viejo, watching them work and talking to Courtney Morgan about that. And sure enough, he waited a little bit too long, but I'm not mad. He came around. So shout out to Alabama for coming around on Noah Roberts and Hildebrand. This team is so loaded with talent. Dantzler decommitting from Utah State and committing to Oregon State. I mean, we know that kid is that level.
Yep.
They got dudes all over the place. Defensive backs. This team is so solid. I do agree that this is the best team in the state, and I'm excited to see how this whole thing shakes out.
Ralph, I'll ask you your thoughts on not even this Basha Bears team, because you'd probably echo what we've said. I mean, of course, any thoughts that you have, but I'm curious, are they going to be the 1 seed on Saturday morning?
That's a great question because, they have a loss to an out-of-state team, and in the same way, I don't think ACPs should be factored into anything. I feel the same way about Bashas. But we know the formula loves an undefeated team. And we have one in Marana, and they've got a couple of really good wins on their schedule. So my hope is that that they end up number 1 because they are number 1. I believe that if they played anybody in the state, they would win. And they've shown that against a couple of teams that are slotted at or close to the open, especially that, they beat Brophy. It was close, but they did it. And they handled Chandler by 2 scores. They handled Hamilton by 2 scores. That doesn't happen often. So I believe that they should be number 1, but we know how the formula feels about undefeated teams. I will say this: they probably have the best offensive line. They probably have the best total receiving core. We can argue individual players. They probably have the best group of running backs. They have the most prolific passer in the state. that I've seen, and then
preach on it, my man, preach.
Yeah, and defensively, I would put their coaching staff up with against anybody's in the entire state. So to me, they are currently number one with maybe some argument for Liberty at number two. But I don't think that that's what we're going to get. And that's what's going to be really, really interesting about how everything is placed, because this week, and I know this isn't C-Town related, but we have 8 and 9 playing each other for the right to go play Marana. And, you know, what would happen if a Queen Creek, who did lose to Perry, but what would happen if a Queen Creek ran up against Marana in the first round? I'm afraid that the answer wouldn't reflect the rankings. So, you know, I would love for Basha to be number one, but at the same time, if it creates a matchup for Basha that they haven't actually seen this year, then that could be pretty cool too.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. Jumping to 4A, ACP at Arcadia this week. Chili, let me ask you this. What does ACP need to do to win that game? I guess Arcadia is no joke, but I assume if ACP does their thing, they will win. And then, Ralph, I'll ask you about ACP standing. They're falling in the rankings, but yet they keep on winning. Chili, let's start with you.
I think ACP is going to get this one. Like I said, they're playing the best football right now. One kid that I do want to show some love to is they got a quarterback over there, a backup quarterback, Gunnar Schmidt. I show enough love to Heinrich, so I'm going to show some love to Gunnar Schmidt, who came in and put in some work last game. So, yes, he did. Dude, this is a team that's not just hitting in all facets of the game, but on all levels of their varsity. Like, their backups are coming in and putting in this work, getting rotational time and delivering. Like, it doesn't slow down. I think that Arcadia has their own emotional situation that they're dealing with from last week, figuring out, you know, is it a win? Is it not a win? Are we undefeated? Did we lose one? Whatever. And the longer that they let that linger, and the longer that there's an appeal process for that, I think that, you know, it's a distraction. One, for me, and I know this is C-Town, but for me, if I was a coach, I'd be like, hey, look, man, we lost the game. Let's deal with it. Let's move forward, because we got this red hot ACP team to deal with. That's just me, though. So I think ACP is fully in the driver's seat of this thing. Nothing that Arcadia did last week or has done all season is going to change the fact that ACP is playing the best football, probably not just in the 4A. So shout out to ACP, and I think we're going to watch them roll. We're going to be talking about them for a couple more weeks now, and they're definitely going to be the engine that keeps C-Town Rivals podcast going. If I can count on one team, to do that right now, it is ACP.
Okay, I'm with you, Chili. Ralph, I'll ask you about their slide down the top of the standings. I mean, they're at number 4. Assuming they win, do they stay at 4? Do they have enough strength? Because what's troubling is when it gets to the semifinal round, you want to be at home. You don't want to be going north or south. You want to go up there on Arcadia and Gilbert.
Yeah. So what happened with Arcadia and Vista Grand is obviously confusing and bad for Vista Grand. It's not necessarily good for Arcadia, because, you know, they know they lost that game. Somebody who had one touch for 6 yards is not the reason you lost that game. And so They know they lost, but it doesn't count. And then ACP gets to come in and they get to take on a still undefeated Arcadia, which is the best possible thing that could happen for ACP, because if they win, then they're going to jump. Good. And if they lose, nothing's going to happen, because they're going to get that bus bonus for playing an undefeated team late in the season. So the whole confusion between Vista Grand and Arcadia is actually a really good thing for ACP, because I think it kind of keeps Arcadia a little bit distracted. They know that they're not invincible, even though the record doesn't say it. And I think it gives ACP a really, really cool opportunity to play one of the better opponents they're going to play this year right before going into the 4A playoffs. And I'm really, really excited for this opportunity for them. You know, do I wish there was that level of confusion anywhere else in the state? No, but it is very good for ACP, because a win or a loss in this game actually a win is better for them and a loss is better for them, given that Arcadia is still undefeated.
Fair enough. Ralph, while we're on this note, we'd be remiss not to talk about Chandler Hamilton, and then I want to get into some other rankings with you. You're an alum of the school. What does it mean to you? I mean, we've covered this rivalry for a long time. I mean, it speaks a lot. Of course, it has its luncheon, it's etc. But you in particular, you've been there. You've been there. I like hearing from you what it means when you look back as a student, as a journalist, just all of this. Kind of cool, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I wanted to go to Hamilton really bad. I went to Bogle Junior High School. Pretty much everybody at Bogle was going to Hamilton. I went to my parents. I said, can I go to Hamilton? They said, what's closer? And so I did the math. And from where I was at on Pecos and Dobson, Chandler was about a quarter of a mile closer. And my parents said, okay, well, you missed the bus enough that it's going to save you time when you have to walk to Chandler. You're going to Chandler. And I remember, I'm like, I don't have any friends there. I don't know anybody. And I was petrified going into I felt like going into ninth grade alone. Now, Chandler grew so fast that I hopped around elementary school so much that I'd actually gone to 5 schools in my first 5 years in the city of Chandler: Fry, Hartford, San Marcos, Erie, and Knox. So I ended up knowing a ton of kids when I first got there. And the great thing about Chandler when I got there is it was the old school. There was nothing to keep new or nice or clean. They were very laid back. They were very chill. There was break dancing at lunch every single day. It was open campus. And then I'd call my friends at Hamilton, and they'd be like, everything is brand new. They don't let us touch anything. They don't let us have any freedom. They just want to keep stuff nice. We don't have open campus. We're all indoors. They painted the walls peach. It's weird in here. And I remember being like, oh, wow, I really lucked into this situation at Chandler. I never knew at the time that the sports rivalries were going to get big. It became very evident very quick in freshman football and wrestling, basketball, track, all of those things. And then I remember at the end of my freshman year, we were all sitting in a circle stretching, and Terrell Suggs, one of the premier athletes in the state, but a fullback on our wing T offense, Derek Richardson, was our primary running back. So Terrell Suggs wasn't even getting the bulk of the carries. But he was 6'3", 245. He ran in the 4x1. I mean, freak athlete, really good on the basketball team.
That's
I think got attention from your alma mater, Syracuse. Liked him as a hooper a little bit from what I remember at the time. And we're all in that circle stretching. And this guy, Justin Wolf, a senior on the track team, said, hey, Terrell, I heard you're jumping ship. And Terrell just put the finger up like this. And then we all got in close, and he told us he was leaving for Hamilton. And I remember he went there. He got some academic assistance, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way. Like, I mean that in like they really invested in his academics. John Wren fed him the ball. I think in his senior year, I think he had over 250 carries, and it led to him getting scholarship to Arizona State and becoming the single season sack leader. But what it really led to is Hamilton whooping our ass. And that continued. They had all the resources. They had just awesome coaches. They had great continuity. They had a more modern offense than we ran. A lot of those kids out there, the farm kids and the upper middle class kids, the Jimmy Rogerses, the Travis Dixon, they had a lot of grit. And they beat up on us for a long time. And I remember the only time I ever paid attention to high school football was to go back for the Chandler Hamilton game every single year. And even in years where we got good and had Brett Hundley, they put the game on ESPN, Hamilton would blow us out, shut us out, destroy us. The one year Chandler got close, because of Brett Hundley, Hamilton dropped 8 into coverage on every single play and spied him because they wanted to do anything they could to keep that streak going. When we started this website in 2012, I didn't know really anything about the program or the coaches or Steve Bellis. I knew Sean Aguano got there to Chandler High the year after I left, but I didn't know anything about him. And so, to get to know all these people was fantastic. And then to watch the rivalry shift, to watch it go back and forth, to watch them meet in 2020 in the Open Division Championship, I felt was like the pinnacle of it, even though they did get to play against each other at Cardinal Stadium. It's just been so much fun through the years. And I never care who wins. I was down there a couple of years ago on the Hamilton sideline watching Mike Zadebski watch a game-winning field goal go through. So I think the importance of this rivalry is just that it has marketed itself as the best in the state. So I hope the students keep showing up and the community keeps showing it up. And I hope Chandler being 5-4 doesn't do anything to deter that.
Correct.
North Carolina now, the big rivalry out here is Independence and Butler, right? Butler won a bunch of championships. Independence used to be good before Butler opened. It's a very Chandler Hamilton thing. And this year, for the very first time, Butler's not very good. And Independence beat them to knock them out of the playoffs last year. And so we go to this big neighborhood rivalry, and the Independence stands are full, and it ends up being an incredible 41-34 back and forth game. And the Butler stands didn't have people in them because they were 4-4 going into the game. And so what I'm hoping for is that Chandler fans, who always seem to show up, even when we were bad, even when I was out there and we were losing to Dobson and Umakofa and schools like that, people still came out, grilled on Oakland Street, went to these games and had a good time. My hope is that the Chandler fans show up for this. I don't want it to turn into a Tukey Bowl where no one goes to the games except for when those two teams play each other.
Right.
I want there to continue to be investment in all CUSD. It's an awesome, cheap thing to do on a Friday night. You get to invest in the kids. You get to know the people who are going to be back in your community later. But I hope that this game never fizzles out, that it never dies, because it's it's the reason this podcast exists. It's the reason the website exists. It's the reason we're all friends, is this game right here.
That's fair. No, that's fair. And as we close it out, and this is going to lead a little bit to Hamilton Chili, let me ask you this. The open rankings are obviously out, available, all that sort of stuff. I'll ask, do you like the 8 teams that are in it? Like for me, I'm pulling out Higley. I'm pulling out Horizon. I'd put in Red Mountain, and I'd put in Hamilton without a whole lot of reasoning necessarily. Although you can share if you like. Are you cool with those 8? Are those your 8 best?
I think I've seen all these teams play. Let me think. I see Marana beat Higley live. I saw Basha lose to Mission Viejo live. I saw Horizon beat Higley. Man, I saw a lot of Higley losses here. I saw Horizon beat Higley. And I saw Horizon beat NDP. I saw Liberty for 2 quarters losing to Corona Centennial. I saw ALA Queen Creek beat Mountain Point. I saw Higley in 2 losses. I saw Brophy beat Notre Dame Prep, and I saw Queen Creek beat Centennial. It's a good group. It is definitely a good group. I love Marana in. I like Horizon in. Higley's the one that gets me.
If Higley's out, who are you putting in? Are you putting in Red Mountain, or are you putting in Hamilton?
Right now, I'd probably have to put in Hamilton just because they got that win over Red Mountain. But I saw Mountain View. I saw Mountain View versus Cesar Chavez. Mountain View looked good versus the Cesar Chavez team that early in the season, when none of us knew anything, kept it close with Chandler, who I know Chandler right now is looking somewhere around 500. But Cesar Chavez looked good, in the way that Mountain View beat them. I'd have to go with Mountain View or Hamilton, and it'd probably be based on what we see this weekend. I think that it's still. Look, it's still possible there could be a shakeup when you Brett make the announcement on Saturday morning what the field is really going to look like. I think there could be a shakeup. So I think that this is going to be an exciting week of football for all of us, and Friday night's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fireworks, and we'll see how this thing ends up shaking out. But yeah, look, if I took Higley out, it would definitely be right now Hamilton or Mountain View.
That's fair. Ralph, I'll ask you about your 8, but let me ask you this that kind of leads into it. Is there any way that Hamilton, given the algorithm as we know it, can get into the Open?
Great question. Let's take a look. Pulling it up right now. Yeah, I was looking at it and I wasn't super encouraged, but let's take another look at it. I think we all have like election forecast fatigue. But let's take another look. Entrenched in the open, no matter what happens, is Marana. They are 10-0. They are not going anywhere. They're going to hold down that number 1 seed. I believe that to be true. Basha could lose, and I believe they're fine. Horizon, let me see who Horizon finishes with. I believe it's ALA Gilbert North. So regardless of what happens in that game, I believe Horizon is in. Liberty, I believe, is in no matter what. Where it gets iffy is ALA Queen Creek. If Higley ends up with a 4th loss, I don't even know how they're in now, but Williamsfield right. Sneaky. They beat Perry. If this rivalry game between Williamsfield and Higley goes Williamsfield's way, then Hamilton, I believe, will have a win over Perry. And I think the overall strength of schedule could boost Hamilton enough to be in the conversation. What Hamilton needs, because they have that win over Red Mountain, is they need Red Mountain to beat Queen Creek. I think they meet this weekend. And they could sure use a Brophy loss to Sal Point. And what they have to hope for...
Red Mountain plays Mountain View. Ralph, Red Mountain plays Mountain View. ALA Queen Creek plays Queen Creek.
Okay, so what they need... So here's what Hamilton needs. This is the very specific situation that they need.
Perfect.
Williamsfield needs to win against Higley. ALA Queen Creek needs to win against Queen Creek. Sal Point needs to beat Brophy, and you have to hope that Sal Point missing a game advantages them. So those 3 things will be a great help, and then it would be nice to get a little bit of a boost from a resurgent Notre Dame Prep beating Desert Mountain. But 9 wins should be enough to beat 8, especially when Hamilton has the win over Red Mountain. It's ludicrous right now that Hamilton is behind Red Mountain with 1 additional win and that head-to-head win. The thing that could go a really, really long way to helping Hamilton is something that Chile has alluded to all year long. It is the potential of a rivalry win in Centennial Liberty. If Centennial pulls off the upset, then that strength of schedule goes straight into Hamilton's veins. They'd be 9-1 if they beat Chandler with a win over a team that beat Liberty and a win over Red Mountain. So it's very, very convoluted, but I would say they need 3 of those 5 things to happen. But the most important thing is that Higley or Queen Creek lose because you have to free up a spot. If everybody that's entrenched wins, including Queen Creek beating ALA Queen Creek, I don't think ALA Queen Creek falls all the way out.
Correct. I agree. No, I'm with you there. No, it's yes,
man,
it's
this is gonna be tough.
We'll see. It's a lot goes on. We shall see what happens. It'll be a fantastic Friday morning. It's Friday night. It'll be a crazy Saturday morning. That's for sure. We'll be doing the show actually at Basha High School, so we'll see if there 1, 2, etc. But it'll be good stuff. It will definitely be good stuff. Chile, as always, great chopping it up with you. Ralph, as always, great kicking it with you. I'm Brett Quintyne. We'll see you guys next week. This is the C-Town Rivals Podcast.